Well, fitness versus sport was a topic that came up during our coaches meeting, and I can't exactly remember why. Do you?
No. We were talking about the CrossFit Level 1, and it probably had something to do with that.
Sure. Well, it was something that definitely came up in my class today, which I thought was so timely that you decided to do this topic today. But, today we're doing the clean and jerk, which is a very powerful movement. And I'd say that the clean translates into lots of important domains of fitness, but I don't know if I necessarily feel that way about the jerk, especially the split jerk being so very specific and one-sided. Someone had asked earlier today if they should be switching off feet. And I said, if this is your first day doing it, by all means, go for it. Like, play around, see what sticks, what feels strong. But I'll be honest with you, I've been doing, right foot forward for more than 15 years.
Yeah.
And that's where it will stay.
I had a weightlifting coach just describe it to me as batting. Like, if you step up to bat, it's rare that somebody is ambidextrous enough to hit a ball with a bat from both directions.
Sure.
So it's not creating some wicked imbalance if you're just working one side on that one movement versus all the other things that you do. Like the snatch is pretty well balanced, right?
Sure. I mean, I already would disagree with you about that because, when we do unilateral movements in fitness, we work both sides. Or when we're rehabbing an injury, we work both sides. Sport is one of those things where the objective or the goal or the outcome outweighs what might be best for your body. And that's kind of the distinction we're making today, right?
Yeah. But I guess another way of distinguishing those, though, is if you're doing clean and jerk in a CrossFit setting or some general fitness setting, it's going to be sprinkled in with lots and lots of other stuff. Whereas if you're a weightlifter, yes, you might produce imbalances, but those imbalances are probably helping you in your sport as long as it's not creating an injury. So the jerk as a weightlifter is different than a jerk for general fitness because in that case, you're probably doing like walking lunges and you're doing all this kind of like bilateral stuff in a similar position as the jerk, but way more balanced. You're working both sides and you're keeping that balance because you have this broad general fitness that you're sprinkling in lots of variety.
Sure.
But if you're doing weightlifting as a sport, that's a big key difference.
Well, let's define those terms, or at least let's make a distinction between those things.
Well,
on a broader sense, right?
Yeah, I think sport can be a little bit more difficult to define because the obvious is if you're competing, if you have a competition of any kind that you're working toward in a specific domain, that's obviously sport. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, people play pickup basketball locally. They're not training for an event. They have no goals per se. Some people just do this for fitness, but I would still classify that as a sport because you're just doing very specific things and it's a closed, the thing about sport is that it's a closed environment. In other words, there are rules to the game. Mm-hmm. Whereas in fitness, there kind of isn't any rules, right? There aren't any rules because you're going to work on the area of fitness that you need to in order to bring up the deficits that you perceive.
And it's just much broader.
Yeah,
right?
It can be much more broad or it can be specific, and it just depends on what you're trying to achieve for your health, your body, whether that's composition or strength or whatever. And your body is not a subject of the sport. It's like the other way around. The training is for your body rather than your body being used to achieve a sport.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it, right? And I feel like that also just shifts the motivation and it shifts the priority, right? And I think that that's why we see injury far more in sport than we see in fitness pursuit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That kind of brings me to this stupid argument I keep seeing on X, which is some very influential, like influencer type trainers that are out there have gone on record as saying like that the deadlift after a certain age, you shouldn't be deadlifting.
What?
And it's just so absurd to me because they cite all these examples of exercises that might be safer. And pretty much the examples that they use is just putting everybody on a machine. And I'm thinking, well, they're coming at this and they're really mixing up their intentions with the lift, because a lot of people who think that deadlifting is dangerous, it's because they either come from a powerlifting background or strongman or something like that, or that's what they've witnessed and that's what they've seen, or they just don't know how to do the lift properly. Like,
or like
any of
in
those
their mind, they're thinking like, oh, deadlift means heavy. Like, that doesn't have to be the case.
Yeah, but even if it is, you can have a progressive overload without competition, and it's a very safe environment.
Sure. I was just saying in class today, like, we were watching Masters weightlifting for a reason. Mm-hmm. During our session, we had a really small class, and I said, you know, one of the best things that you can do for your own weightlifting is to watch others. And I just happened to choose Masters weightlifting, which is like 35 and over and beyond. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason that you're seeing a lot of older lifters. It's considered much more safe than other sports. Yeah.
So I think the perceived danger is just from a misapplication of the movement, whether it's bad form or just bad programming, you know, trying to...
Oh, yeah, like going too ham too fast.
Yeah, either going too far too fast, or there's this idea with starting strength and Mark Ripito that somehow you should be adding 5 pounds to the barbell every week. And it's like, well, yeah, that's true as a novice. But, you know, if you read the fine print or if you really listen to what he's saying, he's not assuming you're going to be able to do that forever.
Or if you're not missing a day and, you know, everything else is in alignment too. You know, that's not like a general prescription.
Yeah. And, you know, with my Rat Pack, these are all people 60 to 90, and they're doing deadlifts every week. But we do a wave pattern cycle. So 7 reps one week, 5 reps the next, 3 reps the next, and they're getting progressively heavier. And then we start that wave over again. So they go back up to 7s and they back off of the weight, and then 5s and then 3s, building on the weight again. And they do that cycle 3 times. And then they have 2 weeks off completely where they don't lift at all. And then when we start the next cycle, we start with 3 weeks of tempo work. So it's really light, really slow for 3 weeks. It's kind of agonizing. And then we go into another 9 weeks of that wave pattern that I just described. And our injury rate with deadlifts is major injuries, absolutely 0. Mm-hmm. And minor injuries that people have had full recoveries from, I think maybe 3 out of 40 clients in the last 3 years that are ages 60 to 90. So this whole idea of deadlifts being dangerous after a certain age is absurd, first of all. And I think it's just conflating the sport versus the movement for fitness.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think it's a really important distinction.
Well, I forget to, do you guys test 1 rep maxes in Rat Pack?
We don't, because there's no point. There's no point to 1 rep max a deadlift unless you are a competitor. And that, again, that's separating sport from fitness. So the heaviest we ever get is a 3 rep max. And then if they accidentally hit a 1 or 2 rep max and they can't do all 3, then it's probably still a lower risk than if they had psychologically tried to load the bar for a single.
Well, so that's something that I actually wrote down was, you know, taking the intensity or the pressure off. I think that's kind of tough to cultivate in a CrossFit setting. And I think us being such a green gym in a place that's really been untouched by this kind of programming, we have a really unique edge in that particular way. I think about sometimes if our members were ever to go to other gyms, you know, you would see a very different crowd of people, potentially just like uber competitive every time, making lots of noise, like ripping their t-shirts off. And I wouldn't say all gyms are like that, but there's a competitive aspect, right? Like, we all are here for the same reasons, but one of those reasons is like the energy in the room, and that energy really does push people further than they would push themselves if, you know, training in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. And that can
on a consistent basis.
Yeah, and I think that can really feed those of us who do like having a competitive outlet or would identify as competitive people, I don't see anything wild happening in our gym in that regard, but it can be that way when it comes to like trying to achieve a certain skill or trying to lift the same thing that the person that you're paired with is doing. And I think the reason this conversation is important to our gym is that we're a gym of fitness. Even for our athletes, right? Our student athletes, or even for myself, like I think of the work that we do here as building and cultivating fitness. And so that is a much longer game, I think.
And part of the premise that we're working on here is that the kids who are in sports are already getting their sports-specific training by participating in their sports, by going to practices, by showing up for games. So our job is to provide a broad base of fitness from which to build that sports-specific ability so that they're more robust, less injury-prone. And of course, it's going to help strength and power and all those things could carry over to benefit their sport, but it's also a protective mechanism by having this foundation of fitness where we'll leave it up to their track coach to coach the specific track things.
Exactly. Totally. And I guess I just mean to say with all of that, that I'd like the pressure to be off of everybody. Like we're all starting at different vantage points and we're all moving at different rates and we're all prioritizing different things. You know, some people really lean into our lifting days and some people really lean into our pull-up skill days. You know, not everybody has the same desire to fill all the buckets the same because there are many.
Can you get your mic a little closer to the screen?
Yeah, sure.
Get right
better?
Up in there. Yeah, I think
okay.
You got the sour mic this time.
Oh, I do. Okay, thanks. But I just want to take the pressure off. Like, we do not expect people to come in here and like train like their lives depend on it. You know, maybe that's not the greatest phrasing because
their lives do depend on
it. But you know, we talked about this in a podcast episode about consistency and being like, if you're showing up with 60% in the tank, like, great, give me that. You know, we get it and we'll adjust for that. And that's the same. I think that's an important distinction with sport and fitness is that there's this push and this pressure to perform. We're like, I'm just fucking glad you're here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And the objectives can really more readily change too when you have mindset that you're doing this for your health versus a competitive sport. Because if, for instance, I have a deadlift competition, then I'm going to be really obsessed with making sure I'm getting my deadlift numbers in regardless of how I feel.
Yeah.
Whereas right now, at the age of 50 with like a sleep disorder, I guess you could call it, like I have issues. So recovery sucks a lot of times. And so my objective with deadlifts is to be able to do them every week. And so sometimes like I'm working at 50, 60% and just getting in the reps. And the first twinge of like, oh, my back feels a little, a little tight on one side. I'm done for the day.
Good call.
I'm just done. Like,
good.
I'll just do it again next week, and
yes.
It's like playing it safe, but it's also like playing it for the long haul, like the really far view versus I have a deadlift competition in 9 weeks. I can't take a week off.
Well, that's a really tough one that's a tough conversation for me to have because I'm very motivated by competition. And I know that really turns out not only like the best in me as a person, I feel really fulfilled by it. But it really does, it just like turns on a switch. Like I feel so much more committed to the work that I'm doing, just having
an audience.
Yes.
Yeah. But you know what? What I've seen though with you is that you are able to change your objectives. So for instance, your objective with this upcoming competition is not to win.
Well, there's no way that I could.
Well, even if, you can't really say that. Like right now where you're at, you feel like that's true, but you could probably push harder and you could probably like
I could cut down to the next class and do all that. Yeah.
But the thing is your objective is you want to go 6 for 6. not injured and have fun, right? Like that's kind of the objective, is to just show up and reintroduce yourself back into the sport. And so even in a sport context, you can change your objective.
It's true. You did see that shark come out for a minute there when that start list came out a couple weeks ago. And I was a little freaked out myself that like, you know, seeing the start list and seeing everybody who I was competing next to and like seeing our numbers and what we submitted, and just like my mind immediately went to like, I want to crush them. Like, I'm going to kill this. And like, I'm going to fill that spot where there's room for another medal. And like all this was just like flooding to me. And then something kind of settled with all of that information. And I was like, oh yeah, I actually have no shot with my current positioning. And that was actually a really big relief.
Yeah.
Like to take that pressure off. Like that cutthroat side of me, I do have a lot of respect for. But it's not right for me right now, right? Like I'm just lucky to be lifting at all. You know, I'm a year out from injury, one of the worst injuries I've ever had. And I'm just lucky to be here.
Yeah. And a layoff before that. 3 years before that of just...
I know.
Yeah, so that's great. I wanted to, while we're on this subject, wanted to address the difference between the functional training focus that we have here versus bodybuilding and endurance. The bodybuilding communities and endurance communities particularly, I could name others, but those...
You're talking about like running, cycling, swimming.
Yeah, running, cycling, swimming as far as endurance, and then bodybuilders. What has happened, and I think this may have happened perhaps in the 50s, 60s, you know, bodybuilding started to get pretty popular. And Arnold Schwarzenegger was like a household name, and he kind of put into everybody's head that bodybuilding is fitness. And bodybuilders of that era, and I think still to this day, a lot of times you equate bodybuilding style workouts with fitness. If you go to a 24-hour fitness or an LA Fitness or whatever, any of those big global chains, that's what you'll see most people doing. They're either on cardio machines for endless hours, or they are doing a bodybuilding style training protocol.
That's very interesting to call out. I didn't really think of it in that way.
Yeah.
But like it is really usually two different flavors that are very sport specific.
Yeah. And that's a big mental shift that I wish we could convey to a large audience, is that bodybuilding is not fitness training. It's not bad for you per se. And if you're not competing, you might think, well, didn't we just talk about competition kind of being the definition of the sport? But in this case, I would draw the analogy to like your local basketball pickup game. Like if you're in a 24-hour fitness and all you're doing is like leg presses and leg extensions and leg curls, and you do like a leg day, and then you do a chest day, and then you do a back day, and the
Bis and tries,
back and bicep day, and tries and shoulders, and you're splitting up your body parts.
Is it not bis and tries?
It can be, but no. Usually it's like back and biceps and then chest and tries.
Oh.
But
I've never been a proper bodybuilder.
Sort of like mix and match these modes, and there's nothing wrong with that training. I'm doing some of that twice a week right now just because I kind of want to put on a little bit of muscle mass.
I do it between sets because it's really good for building strong joints too.
Yeah.
Lots of stability.
Yeah, some of that slower, more intentional, strict movement can be a good offset for a lot of the like burpees and shit that we find ourselves doing.
Explosive sort of stuff, yeah.
So I'm not knocking it, but I do think that I wish people could really get into their heads that is a very sport-specific way of training.
So we're now defining what fitness is not.
Yeah, and I see this online again with like these gym bros on X just arguing with each other about the best exercise, or you shouldn't do this exercise, and it's like, well, that's very contextual to what you're trying to achieve. And a lot of bodybuilders assume everyone is just trying to put on muscle. And it's like, well, not everybody is. Not, some people really want to just have a bigger engine and be able to do more in their lives and like hike and run and ski and do things and feel better doing it. And doing bicep curls doesn't really accomplish any of that for anybody.
No, it's probably a hindrance, right?
It could be.
You probably won't be able to put your arms down.
Yeah.
Or put your shirt on.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a huge distinction for me in sports versus fitness, is that most people have a very mistaken idea of the type of training it takes to help yourself be more fit. Now, I will say, so I don't get beat up here too much on this point, is that someone in the gym doing bodybuilding style workouts is far fitter and probably way better off than someone who's not going to the gym at all. So I'm not trying to knock bodybuilding. It's just that it should be recognized as a sport, not as a fitness mode, if you will.
I'm looking up Greg Glassman's definition of fitness.
Fitness in 100 words?
No. I mean,
because the definition of fitness is pretty broad. There's like 3 different versions. One's on a power scale and that kind of thing.
Well, okay. So you mentioned bodybuilding, which I know why it's it's approachable, right?
Yeah.
It's very approachable.
And that's why I called out the endurance crowd too, because a lot of people equate like running with fitness. Oh, I run. Okay. So that's great. I mean, I'm glad that you run. I'm glad that you probably run better than I can and more, distance than I can.
That's an absolute given for both of us.
But the point is that's a very narrow aspect of your overall health and fitness. And there are a lot of distance runners who end up with all kinds of maladies later in life from beating themselves to hell in that one domain.
Instead
of having a broad fitness where they're doing, calisthenics, speed work, weightlifting.
Yeah, balancing out that effort, right? It's a very deep groove. And it's something that you and I talk about a lot with our members when we talk about running specifically. If you think of, we think about running in distance, but I want you to think about running in reps. How many steps, how many strides are you taking in a mile, in 400 meters?
Yeah.
Whatever. That's hundreds of thousands of reps.
Yeah.
That is quite tough. Quite tough on the body.
Yeah. If you're not conditioned for it, I try to use the analogy of I wouldn't, if I asked you to come in here and bench press 1,000 reps, even with an empty bar, you'd think I was absolutely nuts. But you'll go out and run 400 meter repeats 3 or 4 times. You've gotten 1,000 reps in of running. And it's not apples and apples, but you see the point.
Well, I think running is, it's one of those human capabilities, right? That we think of
we're all born, by the time we're 3, we can do it.
Able to do it. And it's one of those things that we would like to see ourselves being able to do for a long time. So I think that's an easy domain for people to really push through or really identify with wanting to be able to achieve. But, running for fitness would need to be periodized, dosed, just like anything else we train here. And so I really do believe that the kind of work that we're doing here in our gym allows people to make better decisions for other pursuits that they have. I hope that everybody that we work with who runs on a regular basis, does a little warm up. How many people just put on their shoes and go?
Yeah.
But we do a warm up every single day in here, just trying to get in some good habits, right? Check in with your joints, check in with this and that, make sure everything's feeling okay before you take off.
Yeah. I mean, I even have my classes knock out a few practice sit-ups before we start the clock, because it sounds funny, but it's even if they always feel good, you start the clock and you're on some time thing where you're trying to get 20 of them in a round. And all of a sudden you do 6 of them and you get a cramp in your abs. And it's well, today wasn't the day, but you didn't test the waters first.
I always say we're taste testing.
Yeah. I feel like we should all do that, even with stuff that seems really accessible.
Yeah, most def. I just wanted to bring up the CrossFit pyramid. And, we refer to CrossFit because this is what we've been coaching for such a long time, you and I. And no, we're not an official CrossFit affiliate, and there are many reasons why we aren't, but there are a lot of values and themes that we do subscribe to. And I think about the CrossFit pyramid, right? It's like the nutrition pyramid, which, really needs some revising. I'm going to assume that it has by 2025 at this point, that like whole grains aren't still like the most important base layer.
On the food pyramid?
Yeah.
Well, it's, believe it or not, gotten worse.
What? I got to look this up now.
One of the most recent government-issued dietary guidelines that I've seen actually placed Lucky Charms as a more healthy option over red meat.
Shut the F up. Hold on. Let me just look at this.
Yeah, it's absurd and politically driven.
I see a whole food pyramid. I don't think that that's maybe what everybody's seeing.
That's not government issued.
No. How do you even find that?
It's fine. I don't really... I'm not going to trust it anyway. There's just too many greased palms involved.
Well, the USDA one is the one that I grew up looking at, and it's insane. But anyway, bringing it to the CrossFit pyramid, nutrition is at the bottom. Making sure that we are...
Meaning the foundation.
Yes, the foundation, and making sure that we're like eating healthily for any of the preceding or following pursuits. And then metabolic conditioning is the next, which you are all doing with us. And then gymnastics being the next rung up, being able to perform body weight movements. I don't think we talked about this on the podcast. Maybe we talked about it in our coaches meeting most recently, that CrossFit defines gymnastics as all body weight movements, not the sport. And then weightlifting, being able to safely and strongly move external loads, is the next rung up. And then sport being the most specific on top, which, like you had mentioned, is competitive arenas, also with a mastery of skill. So like very particular needs, outcomes, demands.
Yeah. The said principle is real. Specific adaptation to imposed demands, said, SAID. So that is a real phenomenon, but you can kind of bypass it in the type of training that we're doing by just doing lots and lots of variety. So you are adapting to the specific things, but you're doing so many different things that you're bringing up a wide base of fitness all at the same time.
Well, and we talked about in this same meeting how CrossFit itself has become a sport.
Yes.
Not a great spectator sport, I must say, though.
It depends. It depends.
It very much depends.
Yeah.
What are you trying to show me?
Not the safest sport, perhaps. I don't know about statistically, but maybe at some point you can read that.
Fitness in 100 Words by Greg Glassman. Let's see. Eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no sugar. No was in bold letters. Keep intakes to levels that will support exercise but not body fat. Practice and train major lifts, deadlift, clean, squat, presses, clean and jerk, and snatch. Similarly, master the basics of gymnastics, pull-ups, dips, rope climbs. Can't wait to hang our ropes, by the way. Those came up in class today, too. Push-ups, sit-ups, presses to handstands. Pirouettes, flips, I don't remember pirouettes being in there. Pirouettes, flips, splits, and holds. Bike, run, swim, row, etc. Hard and fast. 5 or 6 days per week, mix these elements in as many combinations and patterns as creativity will allow. Routine is the enemy. Keep workouts short and intense. Regularly learn and play new sports.
Yeah. So there was more than 100 words there because you interjected a few times.
It's true.
But yeah, that's kind of...
I see why he had to choose etc.
This
Got to make it concise.
kind of summarizes the CrossFit paradigm,
Yeah.
which we... One of the reasons we're not affiliated is that we've also branched out from that a little bit. So in one of your programs and in one of my programs, we do a lot of periodization. And it's because, again, that specific adaptation to imposed demands. And in my case with the Rat Pack, I periodize because I want people to become practiced and familiar enough with just a few barbell lifts that they can continue to progress on those with mastery. And with CrossFit, there's just so much variety. Sometimes it can take a long time to master certain skills because they only come around once every 3 months or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's fun because it's always different. But if your goal for the Rat Pack, bone density is a huge thing for me. You can put on muscle with thousands of different exercises, but bone density is very specific. You have to lift heavy weight. Like, you have to really put demands on your body. And there's only a few movements that are actually safe enough to do that regularly.
Yeah.
Squats, presses.
That are accessible, right?
Deadlifts, yeah. And those are accessible. Some form of those are accessible for just about anybody. And so having it periodized, in other words, we're doing it every week in the wave pattern that I described, allows lots and lots of practice. By month 3, by month 4, 5, you've got enough reps in that you're just really dialed in. The form is great, and you're able to gradually and patiently increase that load and demand on your body without it having to reintroduce some new variable of movement. And so periodization, I believe, for certain goals or populations is very important. And CrossFit would say otherwise. Like, if I were at a seminar, if I was at a CrossFit seminar saying what I'm saying, I would get all kinds of pushback and argumentation. So we have departed from CrossFit in certain domains, because we see needs that CrossFit doesn't meet, basically.
Totally. And, that's very program specific. And Barbell Club is the same way. Barbell Club has very few changes, if any, within 12 weeks. Mm-hmm. The idea is skill mastery and applied strength. So those are things that we need to get really comfortable and really good at before we can get stronger in them. So there's a lot of repetition, a lot of wave patterns, like you mentioned. And so it really just depends on the desire or the goal, right? Yeah. Would I say that Barbell Club falls into that definition of fitness? Absolutely not. But Barbell Club is based on Olympic weightlifting style training, which is a passion of mine. And I realize that it appeals to a very small population, and it's not something that exists out here. So to me, that was really important to offer. But I'm well aware, and I'm sure they are all well aware, that there are deficits in their fitness as a result of training in this way. But that's not necessarily what they came for, right?
Well, it kind of depends. So what your Barbell Club is a strength program, essentially.
Yeah.
And there are people in that program, I know for sure, one, for instance, that it plays pretty competitive pickleball, and she's doing a lot of conditioning outside the gym.
Yes, she's got good balance.
She's got a hard charger, and she's like, she's a powerhouse. And so when she comes in and it's strength focused, that's just balancing out the other things that she does.
Most definitely. And I can actually think of somebody else in that program too, who spends a lot of time in the wilderness, long, strong hikes for days, my nightmare. She's killing it. But it is a good balance for something like that, right? Yeah. That short, powerful work. Yeah. But I wouldn't say like weightlifting is a fitness regimen. Interestingly, though, I would say I was like in the best shape of my life when I was the most competitive and like the deepest in that hole. But I also know that there were a lot of other things that I probably couldn't do. I probably didn't run for years doing competitive weightlifting. Yeah,
I think the style of training you have right now is awesome because you're still following a weightlifting program. You've got a competition coming up. You're getting back into the culture of weightlifting, but you're sprinkling in a couple of days of CrossFit workouts in per week, maybe dialing back the intensity as needed based on the volume of your training and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think overall that's going to be so good for you to balance that out.
I'd say where I was a month ago would have been a little bit closer to how I would like to train. And it was kind of like pulling from multiple different disciplines, like, doing our CrossFit programming 2 days a week and then weightlifting like 3 days a week and then doing accessory work, like all that bodybuilding stuff that we were talking about. Like that made my joints feel great. And I felt really strong doing all those other things, being able to give attention to all those like little areas of the body. I'd say right now, just because the meet is coming up closer, the intensity is higher in weightlifting than even I would prefer. Right now it's like 5 or 6 days a week, which is, that takes up all of my, like, as much attention that I want to give to that kind of training. So yeah, it's temporary, hopefully. And that's the plan anyway. But I have really come to enjoy a more well-rounded training regimen. And I didn't think I would, but I feel like I am kind of throwing in what allows me to stay motivated and allows me to push myself, especially, having to train alone a lot. Kind of got to put in something that keeps it moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, that constantly varied CrossFit style of training, it sure makes you feel capable. I mean, that's probably my favorite thing about it, is that once you're in it for a while and you're consistent and you're really showing up and you're really doing the work and backing off when you need to, but still showing up and, that kind of thing. You get to a point where anything anybody throws at you, you're like, sure, I'll try that.
Yeah.
Like you feel like, oh, I've never water skied before. How hard could it be?
Right. Totally. That's how, Greg Glassman says fitness in 100 words. I would give it one word: capable.
Yeah.
Totally. I feel like that's the biggest gift of this kind of training, is really feeling confident to try new things. We've got so many members here who are into snow sports, and they're like, come on out with me this weekend, like, would love to show you. And I'm like, I haven't skied since I was 7, and I went exactly once. I do not have the confidence that I could just pick up something like this. But I think if I were training in CrossFit for another couple of years, I would feel up to the task. I would feel robust enough to be able to, I don't know what to expect skiing. And that's
a couple of years.
Maybe.
I don't think
does that sound
long.
Too long?
Yeah.
I mean, progress is slow.
Yeah, but you got to give yourself some credit. You have a good base already.
That's nice of you to say. But I also have had the creakiest knees of my whole life this year. So I'm aware that I'm not invincible anymore. Like, it's really obvious to me now, but that's exactly the idea of what our student athlete program is about. Like, they do have these very specific demands, but I want them to also feel really capable in other domains too, to mitigate injury. Like, mitigating injury is really the most important thing about that program. And so, the fitness level that as we increase our fitness level, so does that span of things that we can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess to sum up the theme here, the difference between fitness and sport, a lot of it has to do less with the type of training that you're talking about and more with the objectives that you're trying to achieve. Because like I said, bodybuilding in itself can be a part of your fitness base. But if you're not planning on going on stage, then I would recommend branching out from that style of fitness to more functional styles, even if it's just something sprinkled in. Some of one of the fittest guys I've ever met did mostly bodybuilding and he actually did compete once in a bodybuilding show. The dude was completely ripped. I think I've mentioned him before because he was getting ready for a show. He's 3 weeks out and he wanted to stop at freaking McDonald's. And I'm like, what? And he's down in Big Macs and fries and still at 6% body fat.
Jeez.
Anyway, we don't all have those genes. But the point is,
talk about one of the toughest sports though, right?
Oh yeah. Usually the discipline for bodybuilding to be competitive is insane. Just you're weighing and measuring every ounce of food that you take in.
Yeah, that is life.
And water and it's intense. It's not that I don't have any respect for the sport. I super do. I really do respect.
Super do.
But it's not fitness. If you're at that level, it's not fitness.
No, it's just calling it what it is, right? What were we watching?
But anyway, I just wanted to finish my point because the reason that this guy was so fit is I called him the yes man because he would just if somebody's hey, you want to try trail bike riding? And he'd be like, sure, and he'd go buy a bike. He was just that kind of guy that he would
because he was so capable.
Yes. That
and he could make an investment like that.
He worked for me at Bally Total Fitness, and he was just total bodybuilding style trainer and competitor. And then when I opened a CrossFit gym, I invited him to come out and try it and coach for me again and like get his level 1 and everything. And it was just always the same. It's like, sure, I'll give it a go. You know, he comes out and he just starts repping out pull-ups and trying to learn how to kip and
I never
and
met
that
this
kind of
guy,
thing.
did I?
Paul, no, but he's I think his broad fitness, even though he was a bodybuilder, is due to the fact that he was just willing to jump in and try things. You know, even though he was short, he'd still play basketball. Even though, you know, he had no experience, he'd just try snowboarding out of the blue. You know, he would just do these things all the time.
Go Paul.
So, yeah.
Well, and that's what we hope to give all of you is like all of the tools so that your progress or that your fitness life can continue beyond these walls. We want to just give you the area to train it so that you can further enjoy your lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, we wanted to rant about that a little bit, mainly to help those of you who have some sort of idea of what training should look like, whether that's bodybuilding or running a lot or swimming at the pool twice a week or whatever. We're not knocking any of those things. It's just that those are very narrow band activities if done in isolation, and that falls more into the category of sports training rather than fitness, unless you're mixing in some other domains. You know, if you're just running and swimming, you're losing bone density. You're you're losing muscle as you age. It's just what happens. So I like to encourage people to have some sort of breadth to their training, not just depth, but to have some to address any low points, even if you are involved in a sport, to try to do some counterintuitive training to keep your fitness as a broad base.
I have one last thing to say about that. One, A, you're all in the right place if you're pursuing fitness. But B, that can also be an attitude that you take coming into class. You and I have talked about this when it comes to modifications or scaling options for any given movement, that we should encourage trying them all. Use them all. You know, like get good at lots of different things, even in a scope as small as one exercise, right? Like today, I don't know, I'm totally blanking. Give me something.
Toes to bar.
Toes to bar, yes. So like one day do hanging knee raises, and another day do hanging leg raises, and the next time do V-ups on the floor or dragon flags or toes to rack or whatever. Like all of those are valuable. And I get a lot of questions when people are feeling on the fence about any given modification, like, well, which one's better than the other? And I'm like, well, this one might challenge you more in this way, but this one will challenge you more in this way. They're both totally valid.
Yeah.
And so that attitude of fitness and breadth and range, that can be applied to every step.
Even a specific movement.
Absolutely. Or even a workout. I'm always like, cool, if you want to go for the cardio bump, like do this, this, and this. If you want to go for like a slower strength, we're going to be working on the same clock. So like by all means, choose your own adventure.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
that can change over time depending on how you're feeling that day or what your goals are or whatever. Yeah, I really try to encourage, like, try to have a different experience. It doesn't have to be the same, like, grind every time. It can stay interesting and exploratory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even people who don't have the grip strength to hang from a bar yet, I can still think of at least 4 or more variations on a pull-up that you can do.
All right.
With your feet still on the floor.
4 variations of a pull-up without hanging from the bar.
Okay. Well,
Number 1.
ring rows.
Ring rows.
And
yes.
then we call them body rows when you're doing the same movement, but with a barbell, like in the rack. And then I call them foot assisted pull-ups, where you kind of have a bar in the rack about chest height, but instead of rowing your body back like a straight line, if you picture like an inverted push-up, for instance, that's a body row.
Oh my gosh, what?
Well, you're in the same position as a push-up, except you're hanging from the bar with your feet on the floor, and you come back onto your heels, and your body is a nice straight plank.
Yeah, an inverted row.
Yes, and you pull your chest to the bar, right?
Is that not what you said for number 2?
It is, but I'm trying to describe it for our audience who does not know if they're listening. And so if you're in that same position, you're kind of hanging from that bar instead of rocking yourself back in a straight plank from that bar. Instead, drop your butt to the floor with your arms over your head and you're mimicking hanging from a bar, but your feet are still on the floor. So then you can pull yourself up. I call it foot assisted pull up.
What would be a number 4?
And then a number 4 could be that same thing on the rings, because your hands are in a different position. So that's 4 variations. And then I probably wouldn't put somebody in a banded or assisted pull up unless they could hang from the bar.
Agreed.
However, the minimum requirement that I enforce is that if you can hang from a bar and do shoulder shrugs and then release that shrug, we call it a scap pull, scapula being your shoulder blades. So if you can imagine hanging straight down under a bar and then you can shrug and then anti-shrug for 10 reps, then I think you're safe enough. You have the grip strength and the shoulder stability to be able to try a banded assisted pull-up.
I have a number 5 that
Okay.
doesn't require hanging from the bar. Mm-hmm. If you hang up a band and grab a dowel and thread it through
Yes.
like a lat pull down.
Like a lat pull down. Nice.
Yeah. Takes up a lot of space, but it's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's like rows and dumbbell rows and all kinds of things that you can do to get that basic upper body pulling. So
Feel free to quiz us.
Yeah.
Just know that our entire jobs have been making decisions like these, like pivoting and coming up with the next best choice. Mm-hmm. It's freaking infinite.
But to circle back around to what you're saying is like, if you can't do pull-ups, then don't do ring rows every single time.
Yeah.
As your only modification. Try some of those other varieties that we just mentioned.
Darn it, this is going to come up in another podcast that I want to do, which
Yeah,
was
we're gonna-
about scaling
Yeah, we're going to
specifically.
do a podcast about scaling, so we will revisit this.
Yeah, how to make those choices, not... We always want to be asked those questions, of course, but like I want people to build the tools of like, what do I want to scale to without having to consult the coach? Like, what is the next best choice?
Yeah.
And we'll talk about how to formulate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun.
On the next episode of the Ruby Peak Performance Podcast.
In a world.
In a world. All right.
All right. Well, this was a fun one. I'm glad we did this because it comes up all the time.
Yes. I think it can help paint a valuable picture on how people might approach their training, whether they're in our gym or not, to imagine a broad base as being fitness and maybe not letting the goals push you to the point of injury, but being more conservative, ebb and flow, because
that's how life be.
It's not a winner take all situation. Your fitness is a forever thing. It's kind of like in sport, there's like when the bell rings, you're done. Like there's a start and an end to the game, and there's a winner and a loser, and there are rules that if you disobey the rules, it's this like closed loop thing. Whereas your fitness is something you're trying to do until the day you die. It's forever. Like the game is to keep doing it. Mm-hmm. That's the win, is to keep doing it. And so you come in with that mindset, and it changes your approach on how you train.
Well, that was a very whimsical ending. That was a great way to cap it.
All right. So we'll sign off for now.
Okay.
All right. See you all next week, or the next time we record, whenever that is.
Check the lost and found.
Oh, yeah. When you come into the gym, check the lost and found. It's growing.
It's taking over my life.
It's growing like a mushroom. It's just like, you come in every day, it's like, wow, it's bigger than it was. All right. Well, we'll sign off for now, and we'll catch you next time.